Let's see how to get started using the Wave tool. Actually, using the tool is relatively easy. It's simply a cut and paste process. To begin, you'll navigate to the wave.webaim.org website. Using the URL of the webpage you'd like to check, paste the URL into the search bar at the top of the webpage. Then click the Go arrow on the right side of the search bar. What displays next is a visual report of the items that were identified by the Accessibility Checking tool. A full list of icons and meanings of the icons is provided by WebAIM documentation. Before you delve into the documentation provided by WebAIM, let's take a look at an example of a report on a page. The report page looks very similar to the actual web page, but there are a few differences. Let's start by looking at the left side menu. The table shows 6 tabs. The Summary tab is the first tab to display. The bottom of the tab clearly states the web page passed the evaluation. However, there are some items to note on the Summary tab. The Summary tells us that 7 errors, 22 alerts, and 30 structural elements exist. By clicking either the View Details button or the Details tab, the details of the errors, alerts, and structural elements can be viewed. I am able to identify the issues by clicking on each icon. This action identifies where the error exists, and I am then able to go back to the script for the page and fix the error. You've probably noticed there is some narrative around each of the errors, alerts, and structural elements. Let's explore what it means. This narrative gives some idea of the issue that needs to be addressed. For example, by looking at the alerts, I can see there are 5 items that have redundant alternative text, 2 long alternative text issues, 3 orphan form label issues, and so on. Although these are not true accessibility issues, they could present potential difficulties for users that rely on assistive technology. In this example, having redundant or longer than typical alternative text isn't a barrier. It is just atypical. So, it is important that you do not interpret the identified items as issues that necessarily require change. You must apply your critical thinking and logic skills to determine if the identified issue is truly an issue to be resolved. In this particular case, the identified alternative text issues would not be an issue I would recommend resolving, as the issue is not a true barrier. Now, let's move on to another tab. Taking a look at the Order tab will direct you to review the order in which items on the page would be identified by a screen reader. Let's take a look at the Order tab for this example. You'll notice the items in the left tab pane are numbered. These numbers correspond to the numbered items on the actual web page display on the right. Item 1 in the left list shows a link that is read by a screen reader that allows the user to skip to the content. Although this is not a link that is visible to a sighted user, that's OK. Its sole purpose is to provide a screen reader user the ability to skip the page headers and go straight to the content. Likewise, the second listed item is a search field that can be utilized by a screen reader user. Again, this link is not visible by a sighted user. That's OK in this case. Looking at item 3 in the list, there is a link with no accessible screen reader name. This would be an issue that one would want to eventually resolve. I'm not going to read through this entire list, but this is a list that is important to review to determine if the identified issues are truly barriers to users. Now let's take a look at the Structure tab. In this tab, you can see how the text styles are organized. Each word or phrase that utilizes text styles is marked by an icon that gives an indication of the style associated with that word or phrase. Take a look at the section of the tab labeled Main. You can see that the Heading 2 style was applied to the What is Teach Access phrase. Similarly, the Heading 2 style is also applied to the Tech Industry, Academia, and Advocacy headings. This tells the report user that anyone using a screen reader will know those are similar items in the main menu. Finally, let's take a look at the Contrast tab. The foreground color is identified by its hex code, as is the background color. The tool provides a contrast ratio under the 2 color identifiers. Ideal state of contrast for accessibility purposes is 7:1. In this example, you can see the contrast ratio is 8.59:1. In this tab, the size of the smallest and largest text on the page is also reviewed to determine if the size passes the contrast check of the various font sizes. I know this has been a lot of information to take in. This is definitely a tool that gets easier to use the more you use it. Don't expect to resolve all issues every time, and as I said earlier, make sure to deploy critical thinking and logic when reviewing the report. Some identified issues are not true barriers that would need to be addressed.